Greetings from the Adventist University of Africa. We continue studying the Bible together with the professors of the Theological Seminary of the Adventist University of Africa. And today, together with me, is Dr. Juma Malone, professor of psychology and responsible for the chaplaincy program, and Professor Dr. Olaotse Gabasiani, Doctor of Applied Theology and Mission. And today we study lesson number 9, and it is entitled The Foundation of God's Government. And the memory text is written in the book of Revelation, chapter 12 and verse 17, which says, "And the dragon was enraged with the woman, and he went to make war with the rest of her offspring, who keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus Christ." And in this lesson, we will discuss the importance of the law of God. Essentially, the law reflects the character of those who stand behind its creation. And one of the most well-known ancient collection of laws is the so-called Code of Hammurabi. And this code is dated back to the 18th century before Christ. In this code, Hammurabi boasts of being a just ruler, and not only just, but the ruler who is caring for his subjects. However, many scholars today agree that the Code of Hammurabi is most likely state propaganda. Despite numerous documents from legal proceedings during Hammurabi's time, none of them refer to this law. So in other words, we have many documents coming from the time of Hammurabi, but they never mention the law of Hammurabi, and in this case we can say that his law was not the basis of legal proceedings of his time. And also Hammurabi proclaimed himself as a defender of the oppressed, but his laws do not contain provisions regulating the lives of the poor people, but they have provisions that are supporting the wealthy people. And additionally, the Code of Hammurabi doesn't prescribe any moral norms or any moral values, but only the punishments for transgressions. In contrast with the law of Hammurabi, we have the law of God. And God gave people only 10 commandments, yet these commandments regulate virtually all aspects of human life. It has been almost 3,500 years since God proclaimed the Decalogue from the Mount Sinai, but these commandments remain relevant today. And now I want to ask the first question, and this question is very simple. So many Christians today believe that the 10 Commandments, the God's law, was given only to the Israelites. And these 10 Commandments are not relevant to us, for us today. What can we say about that? So can we say that the 10 Commandments are still relevant in our days as it were relevant 3,000 years ago?
Yeah, definitely. God is the one who issued the 10 Commandments, but he wasn't really looking at the Israelites. Mm-hmm. And we can project further in Matthew chapter 5. In Christ's words, verse 17, he says, "Do not think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets." Mm-hmm. Those are the 10 Commandments.
So, very clearly.
Clearly,
yes.
I have not come to abolish them, but to fulfill them. And then he says in verse 18, "For truly I tell you, until heaven and earth disappear, not the smallest letter," some say iota, "not the smallest letter, not the least stroke of a pen will by any means disappear from the law until everything is accomplished. So clearly, the Ten Commandments, the law of God, is for all ages.
Not only for the time of the Israelites, not only for one nation, but for everyone.
That's true.
Yeah. And also when I think about the Ten Commandments, usually people do not negate all the Ten Commandments, because everybody agree that the commandment, don't commit adultery, don't steal, respect your parents. These commandments are good, and we have no reason to abolish them or to say that they are not valid anymore. But usually people want to negate only one commandment, and this is the fourth commandment. So, but why is the fourth commandment is like a stumbling block, stumbling stone for many people?
Just before I come to that, I realize that most constitutions of countries directly get mandate from the Ten Commandments.
Okay.
Now, if we use the precepts in the commandments in our constitutions, at the back of our minds, then we know that this is a universal code. It's not just for specific people. Most people raise questions about commandments when you touch the fourth one. Why? It enforces, it asks them to worship the Lord on a specified day, and that's the Sabbath. There are many who have violated the Sabbath, so when you touch about, they will always accept everything else except the Sabbath, because they're being challenged. They're being challenged to move away from their comfort zone to a day that the Lord established.
Okay, thank you very much. And sometimes what people say, they say like this: okay, we have all the commandments repeated in the New Testament, but they cannot find any support for the fourth commandment about the Sabbath in the New Testament. Is it true or not? Do we have any support that the fourth commandment is still valid in the New Testament time?
I remember Christ saying, if you love me, do what?
Keep my commandments.
Keep my commandments. No, it's 1 John chapter 5, and it says, if you love God, keep God's commandments. Yes?
Exactly.
So it is God's commandments, and the Ten Commandments are God's commandments.
Exactly. Yes. And 1 John chapter 5, verse 3, as you say, it says, in fact, this is love for God, to keep His commands. Not to keep it. When it says commands, it's inclusive. It's not rejecting this command and cherry picking that. It's all inclusive. We are to keep God's commandments in totality. I don't understand when somebody commits adultery, we quickly notice it. When somebody kills, we quickly notice it. But when it comes to the fourth commandment, very few people get to notice it. Yet God says we are to keep all the 10 commandments.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, and one more question I would like to say regarding the Sabbath, the fourth commandment. What is the relationship between creation, the Sabbath, and the law of God? How are they related to each other? Creation, Sabbath, and the law of God.
The law of God, as we've said, is the transcript of God's character. Creation, right? Creation honored the commandments, especially the fourth one, which is the Sabbath. After he had done all that he was to do, he rested on the Sabbath day, which was now incorporated in the Decalogue in Exodus. So there is a relationship moving right from Genesis all the way to Revelation. Sabbath is a memorial of creation, at the same time, recreation. It runs all across.
So Sabbath reminds us about the past and also indicates toward the future.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes when I teach the Pentateuch, I like to refer to one text. It is written in Genesis chapter 2 and verse 15.
Mm-hmm.
And this text is not translated properly in our translations, because it says that God took a man and placed him or put him in the Garden of Eden. But the original word that is used there is not place or put,
Mm-hmm.
but the original word is to give him rest. So God took Adam and gave him rest in the Garden of Eden.
Mm-hmm.
And what is interesting, it looks like Adam was already in rest.
Mm-hmm.
When he was in the Garden of Eden, he was in rest. He rested, so he enjoyed this being in the Garden of Eden.
Mm-hmm.
But when he committed sin, of course, this rest stopped, ceased. So he was not able to enjoy this rest anymore, and he must live to toil the ground, to work hard on the ground, to sweat when he is walking on the ground. So it is completely different life. And the fourth commandment actually tells us that we must live 6 days with our ordinary life. But one day we need to rest. And this rest most probably is, we need to remember the rest that Adam had in the Garden of Eden. And in this case, I believe that the fourth commandment is just for everyone, because all of us, we have to work hard. We don't have rest in this world. And it is good to stop for one day and to live one day as in the Garden of Eden, just to rest less in the Garden of Eden.
So like you say, really what the Word of God says here in this fourth commandment is to remember. But the reason is given for remembering. Remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. That's verse 8 of chapter 20 of Exodus. But if you go to verse 11, a reason is given. And that reason is pointing us to creation. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth and the sea and all that is in them. But then he rested on the seventh day. So there's a clear connection of the Sabbath, which is a day of rest in communion with God. We are being reminded that it is God who created.
Thank you. And I would like to ask the next question. And this question is about what is the relationship between the seal of God and the Sabbath. So what I mean, do you remember in Revelation chapter 7, we have the sealing of those people who are God's followers, the believers, let us say Christians or faithful ones. And everybody receives a seal. After that, in chapter 13 of the book of Revelation, we have something similar when the beast tries to set a mark, to put a mark upon those people who follow the beast. And of course it is this mark of the beast is a kind of a counterfeit of the seal of God. And what is important, I believe, that in both cases the most important issue is the worship. Yeah, because people who follow God, they worship God. And they said, worthy is the lamb, yes? But beast tries his followers to worship the beast. Okay? So in this case, how do you understand this seal of God? This seal of God. So what is this? What is this seal? And as a counterfeit or like a false seal is the mark of the beast.
Here's the patience of the saints who keep the commandments of God and have the testimony. So true worshippers receive that seal. And of course, you are asking what is that seal. But it's very significant to say that the Sabbath is the one that points to the Creator whom we should worship. But then, as I said in Revelation 13, there is a false sealing here going on. What the devil is trying to do is to distract God's children and the world at large and move them away from worshiping the true God. The same God that the fourth commandment is calling us to remember, to keep His Sabbath because He is the Creator.
And I also would like to ask a question. So when we speak about the seal in Revelation chapter 7, so is it a kind of a visible sin? Because do you see some people, when they speak about the mark of the beast, they say that the mark of the beast must be somehow visible, and they're afraid of some like chips or whatever. So, but is it a visible sign, visible seal, or something invisible?
It could be, it is something invisible ingrained in somebody's mind, especially the obedience. Obedience cannot be seen. Because talking about those who owe, obedience cannot be, so it is. It
is not seen on the person, but it is seen in the behavior of the person.
The behavior
Yes.
of the person.
So maybe the good illustration is the book of Ezekiel, because when John speaks about the sealing of the people, he refers back to the book of Ezekiel chapter 9. And we can see that Jerusalem was already doomed for destruction, and God brought Ezekiel in the vision to Jerusalem, and he demonstrated or showed to him the sealing of those who are still faithful in Jerusalem. And let us imagine ourselves living in Jerusalem before the destruction. And there are two groups of people there, one who are faithful and those who are not faithful. And of course, if you just go around them, we will not see any difference between them, between these two groups. But some were sealed and some were not. So I believe something else, something similar will happen in the end of the world's history. When God sealed His own people, it doesn't mean that they can physically be distinguished from those people who are not sealed. But of course we will see the difference by looking at the behavior of the people.
Yeah. In fact, a close illustration to that is when God tells that He will write His laws in the tablets of our hearts. As we walk, we don't see any physical sign, but we can see the influence of what God has written in the hearts of those people. The tablets are not visible, they are invisible. So it is with the seal. It is indeed invisible. But there will be a distinction in the end time. There will be a very clear distinction where the voice of God speaks to His people and they hear Him, and those who have the false seal will not hear Him.
Yeah, thank you for this. And also what I would like to emphasize, the three angels message is very important in this regard.
Right.
Because what happens? God sealed His own people. After that we have like a false sealing or counterfeit of the sealing, and this is the mark of the beast. And after that we have the three angels message. And what is the idea of the three angels message, especially the first angel? What does he say, the first angel?
Fear God and give glory to Him, for the hour of His judgment has come, and worship Him who made heaven and earth, the sea and springs of water.
Okay, so in other words, the beast requires worship for itself. But the angels, the first angel just warned the people, please don't worship the beast, but worship the real God. And the angel emphasizes how we can worship the real God. So what does it say? So that we need to worship the one who
made The Creator, he's talking about the Creator, who
The
made
Creator.
heaven
The
and
heavens
earth,
and the earth.
the sea and the springs of water.
Yes. And when we read the fourth commandments, we can see in the fourth commandments also the reference to the creation.
The creation.
So in this case, we can say that by keeping the fourth commandments, we revere God, we worship our God as our creator. Yeah.
Yeah, so this brings us into a clear perspective of the great controversy. Clearly, you see that the angels of God are calling and warning people that they should fear God and give glory to Him. But at the same time, on the other side, Satan is trying to woo the people away. So this is the battle in the great controversy is raging. We need to be aware of that.
Yeah, thank you very much. And one more text I believe is very important in our lesson today is Revelation chapter 14 and verse 12. And may I ask you to read it?
Here is the patience. You want to use that?
No,
version?
go ahead.
Here is the patience of the saints. Here are those who keep the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus.
Okay, the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus. So it looks like in the end of the world, the question of worship will be the most important one. Whom shall we worship? Shall we worship the beast or shall we worship the true God? And this worship will be demonstrated by the way how we worship, in which day we worship. Do we worship on the true Sabbath or we worship in any other day? Yes. In this case, I have a question. So can we say, is it possible to say that keeping the Sabbath is important for our salvation? Or in other words, our salvation can our salvation be achieved by keeping the Sabbath? You understand?
Yeah. You see, we don't want to sound like we are legalistic in this issue. But here's the thing. God has given us commandments. How we keep those commandments tells a lot on how we are responding to His love. If you love me, keep my commandments. So the Sabbath itself is the authentic demonstration that we believe in a God who created us. It is not the conscientious physical keeping that matters, but it is what we project to God, our belief in Him, our faith in Him, that we are able to keep the Sabbath, acknowledging that He is our Creator. So it does not mean that because I'm keeping Sabbath, I've been saved. No, that's not the point. The point is the Sabbath is there, which we should acknowledge as the authority of God, and that we shall worship God, and this God has given us this corpus of the Ten Commandments.
Thank you very much. I also would like to address those people who watch us, and especially those who watch us on YouTube. We would like to invite you to leave your comments, and not only about this question, but about other questions that we discuss. So we will try to read everything, and we will try to respond to your comments on YouTube. And it is a very important question. So really, Sabbath, we can say that we are not saved by keeping the Sabbath.
You're right.
So Sabbath cannot save us. We can be saved only by Jesus.
Yes.
Yes. So in this case, what is the role of the Sabbath? How can we explain the role of the Sabbath?
Sabbath has many characteristics and roles. I'll just mention three. One is a memorial of creation. Old Testament. It's a memorial of recreation. New Testament. It's also a sign between, according to Ezekiel 20:12, is a sign between God and his people. May I address something very specific here? There are those who keep the Sabbath and leave the rest of the commandments.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That is not obedience that we're talking about. It's not only Sabbath commandment, but all the commandments.
Yeah.
Yes.
Revelation 14 verse 12, it says, this calls for patient endurance on the part of the saints
Mm-hmm.
who obey God's commandments and remain faithful
To
to Jesus.
Commandments, not a command.
Yes.
Sabbath is just one of them. So to be part of the saints we're referring to here, we should keep all the commandments. On the flip side, there are those who keep all the 9 and skip the Sabbath.
So they also are not qualified as...
They are not qualified in this group. They don't qualify at all. So we are appealing to our friends as we remind ourselves the commandments of God,
Mm-hmm.
all of them in totality.
So I would be more comfortable if somebody sees me as a commandment keeper than a Sabbath keeper.
There you go.
Because it
Okay.
only singles out the Sabbath, but
Mhm.
commandment keeper,
Everything else.
it's everything.
Right.
And this is love of God
Mm-hmm.
to keep His commandments.
Correct.
And as you said in the beginning, so Jesus also said, if you love me,
Keep my commandments.
keep my commandments. Thank you very much for this discussion. The Bible tells us about the final crisis that will occur just before the second coming of Christ. And at the heart of this crisis will be the question of worship. Either we worship God or we worship the Antichrist. Many people, when read the biblical account of the last days events, are worried about accidentally receiving the mark of the beast. But the Bible tells us that there is no need to worry about this at all, because the seal of God is given before the beast starts marking its people. Therefore, the only thing we need to worry about is not missing out on receiving the seal of God, because those who receive God's seal, they cannot receive the mark of the beast. May God bless you to remain faithful to Him in worship and in preparation for the final events of Earth history. And thank you for being with us. And also I would like to remind you, if you like this video, please press the like button so that it can be watched by more people. Be blessed.